IVM.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and staying safe. It is a difficult time with the recent surge in the number of COVID cases, and a lot of us have been impacted in one way or the other. If you can, please make sure you take the vaccine. If not, please take all necessary precautions and avoid any and all non-essential travel. We've seen the health infrastructure being severely impacted, and the best you could do at this time is to avoid putting yourself or others at risk. Stay safe and we shall all see this through. As for today's episode, we talk to journalist, storyteller and podcaster Arjun Narayanan as he takes us around his hometown. So sit back and enjoy. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome Arjun Narayanan from the Madraswallah podcast.
Hi Arjun, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hello guys, so nice to be here again after a few months. Thanks a lot for having me here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome again, I guess. One of our few guests who have taken the courage to come back, I guess, Arjun, not yet bored of us.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, it's always a pleasure. And for those of you listening for the first time, Arjun has also done a wonderful episode on Varanasi. That's one of our actually best performing episodes as well, so definitely do go and check it out, or we'll link it in the show notes too. And like I said at the beginning, Arjun is also the host of the Madraswallah podcast. All of you nostalgia nerds, all of you nerds and geeks from the 90s, definitely check out Arjun's podcast. He has a great time travel back to the 90s kind of episodes, talking about the different shows and serials back in the day. So I'm sure if you're somebody who appreciates that, you'll definitely like it. So Arjun, like I said, glad to have you back. But for somebody listening to it for the first time, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little more about you and your podcast as well.
Thanks a lot, Saif and Faizab. So I work in the Times of India as a journalist. That is my day job. Apart from that, I run a podcast, as you said, called the Madraswallah podcast. And along with my friends, I have been running a storytelling initiative called Simply Stories Chennai, where we have monthly events and narrate stories from India. Of course, after the pandemic, our events have moved to the online path, but otherwise we have physical events happening in the city. And I am also a film researcher. I have completed my film research fellowship with the Film Archives, Pune. So these are a few things. I am fond of films, I'm fond of travel, I'm fond of history. And I think that's what brings me to your show as well.
Absolutely. And a pleasure, as always, to have you. But Arjun, tell us and our listeners where you're taking us to this time. Last time it was a fun trip down to Varanasi. But what's in store for us this time around?
So this time I'm taking you all to my hometown, which is Thrissur in Kerala. In a year when we all have been homebound, I guess it makes sense that you all travel home and discover the pleasures of living in a small town in India.
Absolutely, and nothing better than tagging along a local in his or her own backyard. So really looking forward to it. But Arjun, for somebody who might not be very aware of where Thrissur is, could you please draw out on a map where Thrissur lies?
Yes, so Thrissur is in Kerala, more or less I would say central Kerala. Like the neighboring districts are Cochin and Palakkad. These are some of the districts that are near Thrissur. So it's got a prominent railway station and the nearest airport is the Cochin airport.
Okay, nice. And what about accommodation and stay, Arjun? How easy it is to book an accommodation online?
There are many hotels in and around Thrissur because there are a lot of places of interest for spiritual tourism as well as regular tourism for waterfalls and other areas that around the city. So there are a lot of hotels in and around the town.
Okay. Wonderful. And Arjun, thanks for calling out the geographical orientation of Thrissur.
Yes.
But also tell us why one should visit Thrissur, because Thrissur has, like you said, a few points of interest as well as it has its own kind of places, right? Which are very different from the rest of, say, beachside Kerala or the backwaters of Kerala and things like that. Yeah. Would you like to call out the significance of Thrissur as well?
Yes, Thrissur is the cultural capital of Kerala. There are cities in India which are known for the cultural tourism. Be it Chennai, be it Kolkata. The culture of those cities are something that become a part of the selling points. Similarly, for Kerala, Thrissur's culture is a huge selling point. Be it the intangible culture in the form of festivals and traditions, or the tangible culture in the form of the temples and monuments over there. So all these together become a very interesting package for cultural enthusiasts across the world, not just in India.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very, very rich history as well, right? I was just looking up real quick, and Thrissur has been an important center right from the time of the Chera dynasty back in the day to being one of the important centers for the royal kingdom of Cochin, and obviously with the Zamorans in the mix, as well as the Portuguese and the Dutch at different points in time. So even from a historical perspective, it's been a center of quite a few of these large powers, and I think the period of most significance was obviously during the Kingdom of Cochin, when the capital, right, of Cochin was moved from Martincherry to Thrissur. I think that's the high point in terms of the significant period of Cochin. Would you like to add anything more about important personalities during that period?
Well, a very important historical personality for Thrissur has been its king Sakthan Thanpuran. And as we talk during the show, we'll know why he is so important and what has his been contribution in enriching the cultural space of the town as well. And if you talk about history, in India, history, legends, mythology, they all intertwine at some point, and they all combine at some level. So the origin of Kerala is also associated with the incarnation of Vishnu in the form of Parashurama, who is supposed to have fought 21 battles with the Kshatriyas, and in the end he renounced everything and tried to meditate and perform penance at the end of all the wars. And he's supposed to have chosen the coastal area of Kerala for that. And for this very reason, several temples in Kerala are called Parashurama Kshetrams, which means the origin of these temples are attributed to Parshuram himself. And from the northern part of Kerala to the southern part, wherever you travel, you'll find many of these temples.
Very, very significant. Like you said, Sakthan Thanpuran, right?
Yes, Sakthan Thanpuran.
Messing up the pronunciation, but also known as Raja Rama Varman, right?
Yes.
Raja Rama Varman, I believe. And around late 1700s is when he kind of ruled the place. And even beyond that as well, obviously the Kingdom of Cochin was the ones that were ruling the town of Thrissur for the most part. But it has exchanged hands several times, and briefly even Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan had it as a part of the Mysore kingdom before the Kingdom of Cochin took this back with the help of the Dutch. So it's seen a lot of events historically as well, and that also kind of adds to the mix, especially things like Syrian immigrants as well coming to the city during the early days of trade, etc. So all of those have kind of had a rich impact on the history and the culture of Thrissur, right? Now, given that it's culturally one of the important centers, like you mentioned, can we jump right in and talk about some of the significant temples of the area?
Yes, so I'll start with the name Thrissur itself, right? It's the old name of Thrissur is Tirushiva Perur, so the holy land of Shiva. So it's a coincidence that the previous city I spoke to you, Varanasi, was also about Shiva, and even Thrissur is associated with the legend of Shiva. The temple that's right in the heart of Thrissur, you can call it the center point of Thrissur, is called the Vadakkumnathan temple. It's a temple dedicated to Shiva in the middle of a huge ground that is called Tekinkad Maidan. Apparently, many 100 years back, this was a forest full of teak wood trees, and teak is called teak. So, teak in Card is a forest of teak wood. Of course, you don't find a forest there anymore. It's a huge ground today, and there are a lot of teak wood trees still existing in that ground. At this epicenter of all this is the Vadakkumnathan temple, which is more than 1,000 years old, and one really doesn't know what the original structure would have been like. But it's included in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and it's one of the 108 Shiva temples in ancient Kerala established by Parshuram, according to belief. One can understand the antiquity of the temple from the story related to Adi Shankaracharya. It's said that Adi Shankaracharya's parents wanted a child, and they came and prayed over here. Now, the life of Shankaracharya is supposed to be around the 6th or 7th century AD, according to a lot of records. So one can say this temple also dates back to around 1300 years easily. So that's how one way of trying to find out how old this temple must have been.
And one of the most significant temples also, right? Like you said, literally in the heart of Thrissur.
Yes.
That's where it is. And this one, I believe, the Tekanad Maidan that you're saying, again, apologies if I'm butchering some of the pronunciations, but it's almost like a hillock, right? That was cleared out and later on cleared out, and that's where the temple now stands. Yeah,
that's right. So the current structure perhaps was constructed around the time of Sakthan Thanpuran himself. And there are 3 prominent shrines within the temple, one dedicated to Shiva, and it's a huge Shivalinga, several feet high. And then the second shrine that's very famous is of Sri Rama, where Vishnu manifests in the form of Sri Ram, and the combination of Shiva and Vishnu in the form of Shankara Narayana. So these 3 are very prominent shrines within the temple. And also a unique aspect about the shrines in Vadakkumnathan is Shiva's manifestation in the form of a hunter. Now, if you read the Mahabharata, there is a very famous episode called Kirata Arjuniyam, where Shiva manifests in the form of a hunter. So you find that shrine as well over here. And the temple opens pretty early in the morning. I think around 3 or 4 in the morning it starts. And the rituals continue till around 10:30 in the morning. It closes in the afternoon, and I think around 5 it's opened, and till 8 or 8:30 the temple is open for devotees. One structure that is very famous within the temple is the Koothambalam. It's a combination of 2 words, Koot, which means dance, and Ambalam, which is temple. So it's actually a dedicated performance space. As you would know, all these old ancient temples in India, they had dedicated spaces for performing arts, be it music, be it dance, and whatever we know today in the form of classical art forms are all derived from these spaces. And the Koothambalam in Vadakkumnathan is a very huge attraction for enthusiasts of Chakyar Kutha. Chakyar Kutha is again it's an interesting dance form. It's a highly refined monologue, and it's a performance art which entails stories of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and a lot of the other Puranas. And if I can put it in very, very simplistic layman terms, you can call it the ancestor of stand-up comedy. Because maybe it's dumbing down a bit, but there is a strong element of humor in Chakyar Kutha. So while there are very simple dance movements, hardly any dance movements, is more of dialogue-oriented art form. So there is very minimal choreography. There is a mix of prose and poetry. Now, during temple festivals, especially after Onam till around Dashera, there you'll find Chakyar Kutha performances every day in the evening.
Oh, nice. At the temple?
Yes, at the temple inside the Koothambalam.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, sadly, you don't find too many people seated and attending the entire performance because, first of all, it's a working hour for all the young people. It's at 5 in the evening. Most people are not at their workplaces. And one problem with that the artists are facing is that the language is old Malayalam. As with any language, be it Urdu or Tamil or Hindi, when something is presented in a very traditional language, it doesn't have much takers among the youngsters. That's one reason perhaps not many people are understanding the dialogues that is there in this art form. but it's still continuing. It's actually not difficult. It's my Malayalam is not great. It's decent, but I thoroughly enjoy these performances. So if you have a basic understanding of Malayalam and you are interested in storytelling, you're interested in stories, you must attend these, because you'll hear our traditional stories in an entirely new light, how they present very intense and serious stories in a humorous vein. That's simply amazing how they do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
And also kind of very unique also, right? You don't come across this in a lot of other places and other temples also. So that way, I think it's
Yes.
great that this is actually still being conserved and preserved, and hopefully it does find takers, and people continue to take this legacy forward. And just in terms of the structure of the temple also, right? It's in a very typical Kerala style of architecture, I would say, right? Not
Yes, yes.
or very different from, say, the Dravidian temples, the other Dravidian temples of South India. It's not in that very comparable to those, but very typical to how you'd find a lot of Kerala style temples and even houses in general.
Yes.
But pretty huge, I would say, because a lot of other structures I've seen in Kerala, even temples, they're not very high, but this is a pretty huge structure, yeah?
Yes, yeah, you are right. The Kerala temple architecture is very different from what you find in Karnataka or Andhra or Tamil Nadu, the neighboring places.
Yeah.
As you said, there's a heavy usage of wood, and there's because of the heavy monsoon, the roofs are all built in the way you find a traditional home in Kerala, which are again very few in number today. Most of them have gone for contemporary styles of building their homes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, one of the main and most important temples in
Temple,
Kerala, the
yeah.
Vadakkumnathan temple.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Arjun, before going a little more ahead, how many days of an itinerary do you suggest to a person who's visiting Thrissur?
So here is the thing. There are some places in Thrissur which you can't visit during. There's no point of going there in summer. Say the waterfalls, but say
Right.
some festivals like Thrissur Pooram you have to attend in summer. So it's really about what you really want to attend. But if you want to cover, I think 3 days is pretty sufficient to cover the most important sites in and around the town.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just quickly getting back to the temples as well, right? We obviously spoke of the Vadakkumnathan temple. Now there are other couple of very popular temples as well, right?
Yes.
Close by, Arjun, that you'd like to call upon, please?
Yes, very brief mention I would make of the Nalambalam, which is the four temples. Now, those who are familiar with the basic structure of the Ramayana know there are the four brothers, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughan. Thrissur district alone has 4 different temples dedicated to Ram, Bharat, Lakshman and Shatrughan. So you have the Triprayar Rama temple, the Bharata temple in Kodal Manikyam, and Murikulam temple is for Lakshman, and the Payamal temple for Shatrughan. So this is something very unique to Thrissur. I don't know if any other place in India has 4 different temples for the 4 brothers of the Ramayana. That's something unique. So while we mentioned the Shiva temple, which is right in the heart of the Thrissur town, very, very important Vaishnavite shrine is Guruvayur temple, which is also in Thrissur district, in the place called Guruvayur. So the Guruvayurappan temple, or the famous Sri Krishna temple of Guruvayur, again dates back to several thousand years old. More than 1,500 years old. It's got several interesting stories from the medieval era, especially because of the presence of the 2 star saint poets of the temple called Poondanam and Bhattadaripad. So these were the 2 famous saint poets who lived in Guruvayur, and their works are read in Kerala in Malayali Hindu homes till date. So the work of Poondanam called Jnanapana and the work of Melpattur Narayana Bhattadaripad called Narayaniyam. These are the 2 religious works that are read to this day, and they are important not just as religious works but also as very beautiful forms of poetry. Guruvayur attracts pilgrims from across the world, across the country. It's crowded most of the time, so you really need to pick the time of the year if you want to visit. You come during December and January, you will be stuck in a very, very long queue. Again, if you come in April and May, you're going to be in the queue for easily for 5 hours. So,
Oh my God.
yeah. So you must be aware of the Sabarimala temple in Kerala, right? So,
Yeah. Right, yes.
So pilgrims going to Sabrimala visit Guruvayur as well, which is why the December-January time is a very peak season for Guruvayur.
Oh, okay.
April, May, of course, like any other place in India, summer vacation, people are traveling all over the country all the time. So Guruvayur is very crowded during that time. And Thursdays are also very significant for the deity in the temple, so it's very crowded there. So yeah, pick your day. Apart from weekends and Thursdays and these months, you can plan your visit.
Yeah, very, very significant temple, like you said. And I also came across an interesting fact about this place called Punatur Kota, right? It's apparently the elephant camp of the
Yes.
elephants of the Guruvayur temple, right? And
Yes.
it has about 50 to 60 elephants and is apparently one of the biggest such camps. I can't remember if it's in Asia or the world, but I found that bit interesting as well, right?
Yes, in fact, people who go to Guruvayur, those who, everyone loves to see elephants, right? There's a very majestic animal. So they go to Punatur Kota, and it's a very important tourist attraction as well. Guruvayur and all the other temples in Kerala, they have very strict dress code. The men have to be in dhoti, and the women have to be in sari or salwar kameez. That's non-negotiable across all the places of worship.
Right.
And perhaps it might be useful to call it out that some of these temples might not allow entry to non-Hindus, right? If I'm not wrong, because anybody who's like a foreigner or a non-Hindu, it might be a problem getting in. Obviously, you can visit and view them from the outside, but you cannot get in, correct?
That's right. I guess Vadakkumnathan temple being a UNESCO site, maybe they let you go around the temple within the precincts. Maybe going near the shrine could be a problem. I'm not very sure about that. But I have seen people who... and at the end, actually, you wouldn't know, right, whether a person is a Hindu or a non-Hindu. So people who have faith usually do visit wherever they want to visit.
Right,
yeah, it's true. I mean, it might be more of a problem for foreigners.
Yes, definitely.
Planning on getting inside. But this is one of the things that's worthy of being called out. Wonderful. Like I said, a lot of important temples, not just in Kerala, but even for pilgrims from across India, are situated in this town and this district of Thrissur. Any other points of notice, Kaham?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring to your notice was... in Guruvayur itself, a very famous art form that's presented over there is Krishnatam. So Krishnatam could be, it's very close to Kathakali, but it focuses on the life and times of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna. So some of them are presented in a serialized fashion. So every day there will be one episode from the life of Krishna that's presented over there. It's performed at night, and as they say, some people have... it's a mannat mangte hain ki I'll sit and watch this one episode of Krishna's life, and they attend these performances at night. Beautiful performances.
So these happen at the temple also, Arjun?
Yes, they happen at the temple.
Yeah, a lot of very different, unique and very ancient art forms, right?
Yeah, no doubt it's called the cultural capital.
So unique about this place,
Yes.
Now, before jumping on, is there other temples you'd like to touch upon, Arjun? Because I had a couple interesting mosques and churches also that I found there. Yeah, so it's not limited to temples. Yeah.
Yes. So a little away from the main town, but within the Thrissur district, is the Kodungalur Bhagavati temple. Again, it's a very ancient temple dedicated to Bhadrakali, fierce form of the goddess. And this place is also associated with the legend of Kannagi. Kannagi is a very famous heroine of Tamil literature in Tamil Nadu. There are 5 gems of ancient Tamil literature called the Sangam literature, and one of them is Silapadikaram. So Kannagi is the heroine of Silapadikaram, who is supposed to have burned down the city of Madurai with her curse and travelled westward towards Kerala, and the Chera king installed her, welcomed her, and built a temple dedicated to her. Kodungalur also is famous for the Chairman Juma Mosque, which is supposedly the oldest mosque in India.
Yeah.
There are many legends associated with the mosque, and it's said that the Chera king of that time, when he came in touch with the Arabian merchants who traveled from Saudi Arabia to the Malabar coast, he heard about the Prophet and he heard about his teachings. He's supposed to have gone to Saudi Arabia himself and met the Prophet and accepted Islam. Then some legends say it was not the king of Malabar, it was the king of Malay, which is the Maldives, who actually traveled to Arabia. So there are many legends associated, but one thing is sure that the Islamic influence in Kerala is pretty old, and it's perhaps starts from the time of Prophet Muhammad himself, or maybe a little after that. Yeah, one cannot be, maybe we should leave it to the historians. I'm not very completely sure of it.
Yeah, so we were actually looking up around the time frame when this mosque also was built up, and it was a few years, 2 years, I think, 629 AD. That is 2 years before the Prophet passed away.
Yes.
So one of the first mosque in Asia, if I'm not wrong.
In Asia, not just the Indian subcontinent.
India,
Yes, in the subcontinent itself. Yes.
Some fascinating connections, right? And like, who would have thought? I never knew that we would have a mosque in India that dates back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad. So
true.
That way, it's really fascinating to know. And Kerala has been that way, right? It's been, I think, one of the earlier areas in the kingdoms to actually open up trade with the other places in the West. So especially maritime trade, right? So things like that are really, really fascinating to kind of sit and read and actually look at in action also, right? You find places that actually have these connections and speak so many stories and legends associated to it. So that's an interesting bit of history that I personally enjoy. And it's not just the mosque as well, right? Arjun, there's also a couple of popular churches too. Yeah.
Yes, so the Koothambalam church, or the Dollars Basilica, that's also a 19th century church. It's supposed to be the third tallest in Asia. And again, there are older churches in Cochin, and Thrissur might not be the place where you will find the oldest church in India. It's perhaps you will find them in there are other parts of Kerala where you will find them. But 19th century is pretty old for if you talk from a modern perspective. Yes, but from a historical perspective, if you see, it's not as old as, say, the Vadakkumnathan temple or the Chairman Mosque in Kodunallur.
Yeah, definitely. So no wonder that it has so many points of historical as well as religious significance, right? So very, very important that way. Now, quickly jumping on from the places of religious significance, we kind of touched upon this earlier while discussing the Vadakkumnathan temple or even the Guruvayur temple, but even from the perspective of the different art forms and the places that have kind of preserved and conserved these art forms, Thrissur plays a pretty key role, right? Would you kind of like to call out some of that influence as well, Arjun?
Yes. So as I said, the art forms of Kerala, or for that matter any part of the country, have a lot to do with the places of worship. Be it the north, be it the south, they are all closely connected. One of the art forms that had a lot of patronage from the landlords and from the feudal lords was Kathakali. It had huge patronage from the kings, and the antiquity can't be completely known, but yes, people say it is the origins can be dated back to over 1500 years easily, and there will be older forms of the same art, right? So the current form of Kathakali that you see is supposed to be a breakaway from the Kutiyattam and Krishnattam. It was originally called the Ramanattam, and from there it became Kathakali. They are all I would say 19-20 ka farak hai in between all these things. They are all very closely related art forms. But what happened was when the British rule was at its peak, all these art forms across the country suffered a great deal, and you would have found revivalist movements to keep these art forms alive all over India. So for instance, in Chennai you had Kalakshetra that came up to preserve Bharatanatyam. Similarly, there was a very, very big movement in the 1930s in Kerala, which was spearheaded by Arjun Narayanan, a very great Malayali poet, and Mukunda Raja. So these people formed the Kalamandalam in 1930. Kalamandalam is the abode of art. And the idea was to preserve forms like Kathakali, Kodiyattam, Mohiniyattam, and many other art forms which have originated in Kerala. Of course, later on, they also taught other art forms like Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam. As I said, the 30s and the 20s and in the 30s, the feudal lords lost all their power. The kings were not as powerful as they used to be. The patronage was lost. They lost the listeners. They lost the viewers. The artists were living in very impoverished conditions. They didn't have any form of support, and the next generation did not want to take this up anymore. And like all the other art forms, it was usually, they were all like a guild system. It would be either taught from father to son or from the teacher to student, and that parampara went on. So as a result, when there was a point when it felt that Kathakali would be extinct very soon. That is when Kalamandalam was formed, and a rigorous syllabus and training modules were formulated, and the art form has survived. It's not just survived, it's traveled all over the country, all over the world, and now everyone knows. I mean, you do not know the intricacies of Kathakali, but you know, yes, what is Kathakali? That is something that an average Indian knows today.
Definitely. And
yeah,
we have touched upon a lot of these important cultural and art or religion or spirituality oriented places. Is there more beyond these that you'd like to touch upon before we obviously address the elephant in the room, which is Thrissur Pooram? Right? Is there anything else you'd like to touch upon before that, Arjun?
Yeah, so there's one prominent Shiva temple that I missed out, which is called the Tiruvanchikulam Shiva temple. It's again a 7th century temple, and it's called the Padal Petrasthalam, which got a lot of significance in Tamil Shaivism, which is one of the places where the Tamil saints called Nayanmars have sung songs in praise of Shiva. So one of those temples is in Kerala as well, which is in Thrissur. And the second point I was missing out was Kalamandalam has guided tours, but I'm not sure whether, of course, because of COVID, all those things would have completely changed. I don't know how they are operating right now. But I think from what I've heard, around 30 people per day are permitted to enter, and there are guided tours from 9:30 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. And it's another art form that is very closely associated with it is Mohiniyattam. Again, the dance of Mohini, the temptress. It was again ridiculed as a lewd art form by the British in the 1930s and 40s. It was banned. It was revived in Kalamandalam. Today you find Mohiniyattam artists all over the country, and that's something you can watch out for in Kalamandalam.
Yeah, and I think for a tourist perspective, it would be nice to have these guided tours as well, where you can understand and they can explain it to you. So even better from a tourist point of view.
So Faiza, these Kalamandalam and a lot of other places in Thrissur are situated by the banks of the river called Bharatapuzha. It's a very significant river for Thrissur because a lot of great writers of Kerala either were born around this river or they spent considerable part of their time near this river, and they have attributed a lot of the creativity to Bharatapuzha and the environment around it. And Kalamandalam is also located by the banks of this river. Of course, today, because of sand mining and the mafia, all those problems, the river is in very bad shape. Not going there. But one good view you get of the river is when the train goes past the town of Shornur. That's when from both sides of the train you get a very good view of the river.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's nice.
Brilliant. How can we touch upon Kerala and not talk about the natural beauty? After all, it's God's own country. Right?
Yes, and in fact, one of the important places that people visit is the Athirapalli waterfalls, which is again in Thrissur district. It's in the town of Chalakudi. Athirapalli is 35 kilometers from the Chalakudi railway station, and it's 2 hours from Ernakulam. If I have to really sell the waterfall to you, then I can say it's a favorite spot of Tamil and Bollywood filmmakers to shoot sound sequences. Maniratnam has shot several films, Iruvar and Dil Se Jiya Jale song was shot here. And some songs of Anil Kapoor's Pukar were shot here. So nice. It's a very, very beautiful place. It's a picnic spot. Just near Athirapalli is another waterfall called Varachal. It's a proper picnic spot. People go there and the families try to spend at least the second half of the day over there. So ideally you can have an early lunch and leave for these places because they shut down by 5:30, after which you're not allowed inside. And just walk around the Adrapalli forest. They also have some safari rides inside the forest. But those things are, of course, subject to approval depending on the monsoon and depending on various local factors. So as much as you would want to see the waterfall in the prime of its might during the monsoon of Kerala in July, August, it's not a very convenient time, because the monsoon of Kerala is not a time when you can travel easily in these kind of areas. So maybe October, November would be a good time to visit them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one other interesting fact that we read up was about the Thrissur Zoo. So it's one of the oldest zoo in India, established around 1885 is what
Really?
it, yeah.
Yes. So the Thrissur Zoo is very significant, and especially for people who are bird watchers. There are some rare varieties of birds over there, and very close to the zoo is a museum as well. I mean, I went there as a kid. I think the last 20 years I've not gone to either of these places, but as a kid, I think regularly we were taken on a Sunday to either the museum or the zoo. Back then you didn't know what really to watch out for, but yeah, as you said, there are a lot of... I got to know that the Thrissur Zoo is significant because some of my friends traveled from other cities particularly for this. That's when I realized, okay, there's something about it.
Yeah, definitely. That and a couple other places like the Sakthan Thanpuran Palace, which is, I believe, the palace of Raja Rama Varma from back in the day. That's also another significant place that people might want to check out, both for obviously the historical significance of it as well as for the architecture, right? Like we said, very unique Kerala style architecture of the structure as well.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, there is a nice mix of history as well as nature as well that you can add to the mix if that's what interests you beyond the religiously and spiritually significant places, right? So
yes.
That way, Thrissur has other things also that Kerala is usually famous for, primarily the nature bit of it.
Yes.
But like I said earlier on, without delving too much about the other things, I would like to jump into the meat of the conversation, and also one of the most important famous parts or pieces of Thrissur's identity of sorts, right?
Yes. The Thrissur Pooram, of course.
Thrissur Pooram, of course, yeah. And I'll be shameless and... don't judge me, but the first time I came across this was when I watched Dulkar's movie. What is that? Charlie, I think.
Charlie, yes.
There is a bit of Thrissur Pooram in that, and I was quite fascinated by the scale of it and I think the sounds of it also, right? More than anything, obviously, it's a beautiful sight. But for a layman and for somebody who hasn't kind of had any sort of background about this, would you like to explain to us about Thrissur Pooram, Arjun?
As you would have already figured out from the movie, it's one of the largest gatherings in Asia, and it's very important in the tourism map of India, and it's a part of India's intangible heritage. So Thrissur Pooram antiquity is not very old. It's say right from the time of Sakthan Thanpuran. So legend has it that there was a very popular one-day festival called the Aratupuzha Pooram, which was again in Thrissur, and due to heavy monsoon, once what happened was a lot of temples that were supposed to participate in it, their elephants did not reach there on time. So the Aratupuzha temple authorities, in a very high-handed manner, disallowed them from participating in the festival. So these people approached Sakthan Thanpuran and said, how can these people just stop us from participating in a festival we have been doing so for so many years? And to prove their might, all these temples came together and formed the Thrissur Pooram.
Okay.
Around 10 temples in and situated around the Vadakkumnathan temple organized the Thrissur Pooram, a mass festival. And of course, the 20th century, it grew in size because of awareness that people had about the festival. Initially, it was a Malayali festival. Then people from the southern states started coming because they heard about it. Now, of course, with Charlie being available in subtitles where people from all over the country are watching it, more people know about it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But at a very layman-like level, it's a congregation, right? Where these different temples and their followers, along with the deities of the temples, come together and congregate at the premises of the Vadakkumnathan temple.
Yes, correct. So there are two camps, basically, the two groups, if I may say, that are a part of the Pooram festivities. And the western group is called the Tiruvambadi group. Tiruvambadi is a famous Krishna temple in Thrissur, and the other side is the Paramekav group. Paramekav is a famous Durga temple in Thrissur. So under the captaincy, if I may say, of these two temples, all the other temples participate in the Thrissur Pooram festival. So there are around 5 temples under the Tiruvambadi side and 5 temples under the Paramekav side. And the core festival lasts for around 36 hours. So, but otherwise, the festival starts with the flag hoisting, which is called the Kodiyatam. After the Kodiyatam, a very famous, a very important part of the festival is the opening of the southern gate of Vadakkumnathan temple, which is not usually opened all through the year. There are very special occasions when the southern gate is opened. One of them is Thrissur Pooram. So the leading elephant pushes open the gate of the temple, and there are enthusiasts waiting on the other side of the gate, waiting for the elephant to step out. It's literally signaling the arrival of Thrissur Pooram. Yes. Yeah. So it's a very, very, I mean, that itself gives you goosebumps. I mean, the last few years, because of Instagram, because of so many pages dedicated to the city, these visuals are available for all of us to see. But back when these were not available, to just stand there and see that elephant walk out majestically and to feel that, okay, now this is starting, it would give us goosebumps.
Yeah. And just to call out, Arjun, the festival itself has around more than 100 elephants, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes, a lot of elephants from the temples in and around Thrissur participate in it. But on the day of Thrissur Pooram, around 30 elephants are present. It starts with the Kodiyatam and then with the opening of the southern gate of the Vadakkumnathan temple. And there is something a day before the Thrissur Pooram that is called Chamayam. You would have seen the visuals, right? The elephants are presented heavily decorated with umbrellas, parasols, and all of that. So all these things are made from the scratch every year. So the umbrellas, the fans, everything are made from the scratch, and they are exhibited for people to see. So both the temples, the Paramekav side and the Tiruvambadi side, organize an exhibition of all the paraphernalia of the Pooram. I don't know how much it will interest a visitor from outside Thrissur, someone who is not from the town, but we look forward to it. It's like, okay, we enjoy being part of that whole process. And as it happens with any festival, there's a huge exhibition in the exhibition ground.
It looked beautiful. Even like when we were seeing it, I mean, somehow for me, it reminded me of the Dasara Mysore festival to some extent.
Yeah, very majestic. And even in terms of scale, right? Like Faiza mentioned, there's probably overall during the 7 days or whatever, there's over 100 elephants that participate. And even beyond that, just in terms of the scale, we're talking about perhaps over 500 artists that participate during this very elaborate procession, and also the musical performance, if we can say, right? That they stand and perform in front of the crowds. And even the crowds, right? I read estimates about 7 to 8 lakhs easily. And perhaps being conservative. So it's probably the biggest open air concert that you might ever be a part of, right? That's the kind of scale we're talking of. And just those ornaments that the elephants have, right, on their foreheads and the front covering, basically, those plus the mahouts and their support, the fans that they carry, and the umbrellas especially, all of those, it's almost, I won't really want to say a competition, but that's how it is, right? There's these two camps literally standing face to face across the ground, the temple grounds, and then they do these different demonstrations of umbrellas, of the fans, of the paraphernalia, and obviously the music. The tempo is so high. It's just a sight to watch. I'm not doing justice by talking about it. One should definitely go and check it out. I think I could even link a few videos.
So the golden covering that you see on the forehead of the elephant is called Nettipattam. So and then the ornamental the fan that's made with the peacock feathers, that's called Alavattam, and the there's another fan that's called Venjamaram, and then there are sacred bells that accompany these things. And there's on the day of Puram, it starts with something called Madathil Variva. These are all there's a famous mutt, Brahmaswa Madam. That's the elephants come there, and there is a bit of celebration over there. Then they go to the Parmekav temple grounds, and then in the around afternoon they come to the Vadakkumnathan temple, where there is something called the Ilanithara Melam. Melam basically is you can say an orchestra of sorts. So the name comes from the Ilani tree that's there inside the temple. So this again, the tempo starts very slowly, and I think around more than 200 or 250 instrumentalists are part of this, and all these things are impromptu. It's not like they have rehearsed it somewhere and they're coming in performing this. So that's what makes this very special. There are various instruments that are associated with these melams, like Timmalam, Maddalam, cymbals, Edakka, Komba. So those who are aware of the temple music of Kerala, there are people who travel quite a long deal and come and listen to this the entire day. And you don't need to be really initiated into this kind of music. You listen to it, you see the crowd enjoying it, you will be a part of it. That's it. I don't think you need any initiation into this.
Yeah, and also very high energy, right? It's not, obviously it's depending on your taste, you might also say that it's melodious, but it's very high intensity and high energy. That's what I felt from it.
Very true.
Just the crowds also, the cheering of the crowds, that also adds, I guess, to the tempo and the energy of these performers who are actually playing these different instruments.
Yes.
And a lot of different varieties of drums and trumpets and cymbals. It just produces a very unique sound, and just like I said, with the scale of it and everything, it's a sight to watch.
It's truly electrifying because remember, Thrissur Pooram happens right in the middle of summer. It's really hot out there, but you just don't. You forget the heat, you forget the sweat, everything, and when you're in the middle of it, you're just carried away by that entire sweep of music that's all over the place. And the peak of this festivity comes in the evening of the day of Puram, which is called Kudamatam. Kuda basically means umbrella, and the changing of umbrellas. So the two teams, that is the Parmekav side and the 15 elephants of Parmekav and 15 elephants of Tiruvambadi, they stand facing each other, and there is one huge sea of crowd in between them. And to the music, they constantly change the umbrellas that are on display. So there will be a huge queue of people behind the elephants who will be holding the umbrellas, and the umbrellas are constantly changed every 2 minutes. So these are the umbrellas that are put out on display during Chamayam the previous day. And so finally you get to see them being used on the elephants on the occasion of Kudamatam. And you need to get really good view. The best place is to maybe see it on television, because when you're right there, you can either see the Tiruvambadi side or the Parmekav side. But there are, of course, like any festival, you have these VIP lounges where foreign tourists and VIPs can sit and watch them.
Yeah, interesting. And a lot of beautiful colors also, right?
Yeah, very colorful.
Yeah, not just the decorations of the elephants, but these different umbrellas and the fans and
the lighting, because this starts just before sunset, and by the time the Kudamatam is over, the sun has already set. So the sky plays out, sky becomes very dramatic, there is drama all around you, the music picks up tempo, and that makes Kudamatam a very, very unique occasion in Thrissur Pooram. And late in the night you have the fireworks, which is again something to maybe hear more than watch, but so the previous evening itself, they give you something called sample Vediketta. The sample fireworks happen the evening before. That itself is pretty grand, and of course the fireworks has its supporters and opposers. All that happens every year during a Puram. You will find people who say you have to tone down the decibel. That tug of war happens, but that we can leave it for the people who are participating in the war. Maybe leave it there.
Yeah. Overall, I think even on the podcast, it's one of a kind that we have covered. I really, like I said, I should thank, I guess, Dulquer Salman's movie for really introducing this to me.
Yes.
Because these days, like you said, Arjun, because of Instagram and like this being a part of pop culture through movies and stuff like that. Maybe it's become a little more popular beyond Kerala, but otherwise it's quite underrated, I would say, for the size of the crowds and the scale and just the importance of the event and everything. It's still quite underrated, I would say. Yeah.
Very much, very much. And you have to be there to believe it. And whatever description that I give you in words, it will completely fall short. And even the visuals you see on YouTube, you might be providing some links to the festival when you release this episode. Even those visuals say nothing about what you actually will find when you go there. But to be honest, it's not for someone who does not like to be in the middle of a crowd. I know not all of us are alike. Some of us do not like being pushed and pulled in all directions. Be ready for all that if you're going to be part of it. So that's maybe one warning I would like to give.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe manage to find access to the VIP lounge or something. Because if you are somebody who has allergy to closed spaces, especially with a lot of people around you, this might not be a good idea for you, especially given the numbers, right? Like we said, easily between 6 to 7 lakh people that kind of gather in the grounds during the whole day and during the course of the week, I guess. So yeah,
it actually ends with the festival actually ends with the leading elephants. The leading elephant of the Tirambadi side and Parmikav side, they lift their trunk and bid farewell to each other and say, "We'll meet again next year," and they leave. That's
nice.
how it comes to an end.
Yeah. Overall, really fascinating. And like I said at the beginning, this is like the identity of Thrissur also, right? A lot of people do. The first thing that comes to my mind is the Thrissur Pooram when anybody speaks of Thrissur. So there's no way you can miss this. And I'm sure a lot of people who actually travel to Thrissur from outside are perhaps doing it for the Pooram. Anything else about the Pooram that you'd like to add before we start closing this episode, Arjun?
So, Saif, there's a popular saying in Malayalam which says, Kanam Pona Pooram Paranya Reikino, which means the grandeur of the Pooram that you're going to see, should I describe and waste it away? So I guess we'll leave the rest of it for people to go and experience it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely do check it out. And like Arjun mentioned as well, the Pooram happens usually between the months of April and May, somewhere around that time. So watch out for when it happens. And it's going to be pretty hot. So make sure that is taken into consideration as well as you're planning your trip to Thrissur. And a couple of other things, important things that I found about Thrissur as I was reading up and looking up about this is a lot of the big, entrepreneurs and business families of Kerala also hail from the region, right from, I believe, the Joy Alucas.
Oh, yes.
The jewelry brand.
I got to know about all these things very late in my life because these are not things you watch out for in your daily life. So there are 3 banks actually that are headquartered in Thrissur. The Catholic Syrian Bank, the Dhanalakshmi Bank and South Indian Bank. They all 3 are headquartered in Thrissur. It's very rare for a small town of India to be the headquarters of a bank. So
Right.
And I also read that apparently 70% of all of Kerala's gold or Kerala's jewelry, for that matter, are manufactured in Thrissur. So that might be.
Wow. Okay.
Because I was reading some reference about the gold capital of India, and I was like, why is it called the gold capital?
Obviously Joy Alucas and even Kalyan Jewellers.
Kalyan Jewellers is based out of Thrissur, yes, headquartered here.
So a lot of important people also from Kerala and India come from the region, and including, I believe, the founders of Lulu also hail from this region. So a lot of interesting facts and trivia about Thrissur while coming up across this. But thank you so much, Arjun. Like initially when I remember back in the day when we thought we'd speak about Thrissur, I was like, maybe this one was going to be a short episode. But as I kind of got into it, it was really, not in a condescending way, but a rabbit hole of sorts, right? There were so many interesting things. And the Thrissur Pooram is a different world in itself.
Thank you so much, Arjun. Yeah, it was great because, from a perspective where you understand about the culture, no doubt it's called the cultural capital of Kerala. There is so much culture and so much beauty in this place, and it's got both the historical aspect and the cultural aspect and the natural beauty to it. And of course, the Pooram, the beautiful Pooram.
Yeah.
Thank you. As I as I told you in the beginning, I would have presented all of this from an insider's perspective, because a tourist definitely will watch out for a lot more things, and maybe there are still a lot of corners of the town I'm unaware of, but maybe you come to Thrissur someday and maybe you can let me know what else is there in the town that I should visit.
No, you did a wonderful job.
Yeah, and you took us
thank you so
around
much.
like a perfect local. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and please continue doing this work. I'm sure all of us will watch out for your episodes, and it's like virtually traveling across this beautiful country of ours.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. Our pleasure, and our gratitude to wonderful guests like you who come and share these stories and dare to come back again and share these stories with us. So thank you so much. It's our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.